feels good to be back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into First Take. I'm Charlie Arnold, joined by none other than Mr. Kendrick Perkins and Miss Monica McNutt. Dan Orlovsky and Damian Woody will be here as well with their takes on the latest Antonio Brown and Aaron Rodgers news. So we have a jam-packed show. But Perk, before we get to anything else, I've got a question for you. How'd you enjoy that 22-piece spicy wing dinner that Kyrie served up last night in his season debut?
I mean, Charlie, did you see it? And it was 3 different flavors. You had the Cajun rub, the honey barbecue, and the lemon pepper.
Ooh, it was delicious. Well, let's get into all of that yumminess right now because Kyrie's return made the difference last night, helping the Nets defeat the Pacers 129-121. The guard posted 22 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and 3 steals in hitting several crucial baskets as Brooklyn clawed back from a 19-point deficit. His presence also helping his teammates do their thing, including KD, who finished with 39 points. So, Kyrie, tell us how that felt last night.
I've had a lot of debuts, but nothing comes close to this one. It meant a lot. It meant a little bit more, just because at this stage, you know, taking off 8 months or being out of the game for 8 months and coming back in, and you know, there's so much uncertainty. Just how many minutes, you know, what's the flow of the game gonna be like? You know, how are my teammates gonna feel, and what's the game flow gonna be? You know, you just don't have any idea. So I went in with you know, just an open mindset, just to ground myself, be present, and do whatever it takes to win.
Okay, you got to shake off those jitters. Now, Monica, I know where you've stood for the past week or so on this debate, but after seeing what he did last night, is part-time Kyrie good for the Nets?
Oh, Charlie, I mean, part-time Kyrie is not bad for the Nets. I mean, he's a terrific basketball player, and if I can just stick with Perk's chicken wing analogy, that was the most consistent chicken wing order that I would have expected. In fact, if I didn't know that the shop that makes the chicken wings had missed 35 opportunities to cook those chicken wings, I would have never known that he had missed any time at all. And so I think in many ways, last night's performance for me, and I mean this in a positive, was kind of unremarkable. It was standard Kyrie Irving. And if you don't know the context of the big picture, you would have never known. And in particular, I thought in the second half of the third quarter and in the fourth quarter, his leveling up defensively was something that stood out to me as a positive. I think his offensive ability, no questions asked, right? Like his layup package is undefeated. His handles are elite. But when he turned it on defensively and helped the Nets finish that game on, I believe, a 31-16 run, that to me signifies that he has the pulse of this year's Nets squad and understands that defensively, they've been a team that's been formidable on that side of the ball. And so he had to pick up, or he had to continue in that vein.
Monica. You know, hey, the stage was set so perfect yesterday. Listen, here's the thing. The stage, it was a perfect example of what I was trying to explain to you yesterday, ma'am, when I said, listen, on the road, you're getting ready for the long haul. On the road, you need your superstars to step up for you. Here it is, Kyrie Irving, first game back. They were down double figures. I believe at one point it might have been 18 points they were down. And all of a sudden, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving took over the game. Now, my biggest takeaway from this, the word trust. And from what I peeped is that Kevin Durant, along with the Brooklyn Nets, trust Kyrie Irving more than they trust James Harden. And here's why. Because we know in the biggest moments, we have witnessed it time and time again, from Kyrie hitting one of the greatest shots in NBA history and finals history. We know that when you get down double figures on the road, we know that Kyrie Irving is capable of having that type of killer instinct to go out there and do what he did last night. And look, I'm not overreacting because we know that he could do this in the postseason as well. So my point is, when I look at why the Brooklyn Nets would consider bringing back Kyrie Irving part-time, is because of the trust factor. And not taking anything away from James Harden and saying he's not a hell of a player. He's just not Kyrie Irving when it comes to the big moments, especially on the road and especially when it matters the most. Did you see that smile on Kevin Durant's face after the game? Did you see the joy that he had? I mean, seriously, the basketball world had a joy because we all take for granted at times certain people or certain individuals until they're gone, and then they come back and we say, you know what? We got a whole nother appreciation for Kyrie Irving.
I think Kyrie had that joy, right, too, Perk? I mean, he talked about the 8 months away and what it means to be on the court. All right, so you just went somewhere I wasn't really ready to go this morning. I will say this.
It happens like that.
You definitely, it goes like that sometimes. It definitely is evident, right, to a basketball fan, an analyst like yourself, a casual fan, it is evident that Kyrie makes both KD and James Harden's jobs easier. There is certainly a level of trust there because otherwise this very unique situation probably doesn't fly. More than James Harden? I understand where you're coming from, but just again, because of this unique situation, I think James is actually in a position, not that it's competitions between teammates, but for the sake of our conversation, I think James is in a position to garner some of that trust back just because he's going to be there. And I get it. Some of Kyrie is better than no Kyrie. But Perk, you've been a part of championship squads, and there is something to be said for continuity. Now, this is a unique group of guys. The big three wanted to play together. They're going to make these concessions. But I don't care what you say. There is still something to be said for continuity. And so I think because James has the opportunity to be there consistently, especially if he can stay healthy, I think he can garner some of that trust back.
Yeah, but he's been there, but he hasn't been consistent this year. And I think that's been a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the Brooklyn Nets went from, Kyrie, if we can't have you full-time, we're not going to have you some part-time, to changing their thought process. It's not because of Kevin Durant play. It's not because of what Patty Mills, because Patty Mills been balling. It's because James Harden has been inconsistent this year. And so now when you see the inconsistency from James Harden, you like, hold on, our ultimate goal is to win the championship. At least let's bring in Kyrie Irving. This is why Kevin Durant don't entertain those trade rumors when they talk about trading Kyrie Irving, because he knows that Kyrie Irving brings something different to the table that none of those other guys that you could possibly trade Kyrie Irving for could bring to the table. And that's that killer mentality.
Perk, I hear you, and I know that there is an unbreakable bond there between KD and Kyrie, but I'm just curious where we are come May if this thing doesn't pan out the way that we believe potentially it could. Because there's a lot to observe here, Perk. I hear you. James Harden has to get 100% healthy and find his stride and be consistent. The other day, he shot 3 for 11 from behind the three-point line versus the Clippers, which is a no-go. Kyrie Irving, some of him is better than none of him. I get it. KD, I mean, just get a ball to KD. He's going to find a bucket. But if this thing doesn't pan out in the optimal way, I just wonder, in hindsight, is there going to be a different conversation moving forward? And, of course, more importantly, we hope that the vaccination situation changes.
All right, well, we will find out. One thing we do know is that the Nets will be without that killer mentality on Friday. They take on the Bucs, but it's at home. So, again, Kyrie not available in New York City. But one thing we can say about him, he scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. That was the most out of any player on any team. So good for him. Okay, guys, we're going to say goodbye to you for now. We'll see you in just a bit, because on to the NFL we go, where no one quite knows what to think about the Antonio Brown situation, because it is getting wilder by the hour, literally. Last night, AB released a statement giving his side of how things went down on Sunday, saying he didn't quit. He was cut by Bruce Arians mid-game. In detail, he wrote in part, I took a seat on the sideline and my coach came up to me, very upset, and shouted, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" I told him, "It's my ankle." But he knew that. It was well documented and we had discussed it, Brown. And then he ordered me to get off the field and I said, "Coach, I can't." He didn't call for medical attention. Instead, he shouted at me, "You're done," while he ran his finger across my throat. Coach was telling me that if I didn't play hurt, then I was done with the Bucs. However, on Monday, Bruce Arians did answer some questions about Antonio Brown's health, which contradicted AB's statement. So listen to this.
Can you fire a player if he won't go because he's injured?
I don't know that he was.
Did he say that he was, or was there a dispute
No.
about that?
No.
Okay, then this morning, Antonio Brown took to Twitter. He tweeted out alleged text messages with Bruce Arians leading up to Sunday's game against the Jets, where it appears AB is making his head coach aware of his injury. So there's a lot to unpack here, and for that, we bring in Damian Woody and Dan Orlovsky. So, guys, it's kind of he said at this point. We don't really know what to think. So, Damian, I'm going to start with you. How does AB's statement make the Bucs look?
Well, listen, there's a lot to unpack here. There's no question about that. But I just want to show the viewers kind of the process of what, as a former player, what I went through. Okay, as far as injuries are concerned, number one thing, I was ultimately in charge of my own medical. Okay, all the papers, all that type of stuff. That's number one. Number two, I always got second opinions on injuries. Okay. And Antonio Brown in this situation, there's a he said type of thing. And, in my particular situation, I've had injuries like Antonio Brown is talking about. And what I did was I said, let me go get a second opinion. So if the team had one thing, I could go out there and exercise my right to a second opinion so everybody's on the same page. Then he brings out the shot in the ankle, whatever. Well, guess what? I've had plenty of those throughout my career. You take those shots to get you through because you're dealing with an injury that ultimately probably gonna have to get corrected after the season. So that leads me to say this. I think there's some aspects to this that Bruce Arians needs to clean up because I think in the post game he made it seem like he didn't know Antonio Brown was hurt, and I don't think that's the case. I think he knew that Antonio Brown was hurt, but I think ultimately here when you get lawyers involved, it's taking this thing to a whole different level here. Okay, a whole different level. I've never been in a situation where a coach was going to force me to play when I'm not ready to play. That never happened. I played because I wanted to be out there with my brothers. I did what I had to do to be out there on the field. So again, there's a lot of things, whether it be from the alleged text messages and correspondences that need to be cleared up on both sides in this particular situation.
Yeah, I agree with. I also think even though it's a he said versus he said thing, this is very, very easily disputed if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization. Because AB has come out and referenced, I had conversations and I have proof with their general manager, Jason Licht. Well, Jason Licht can either confirm or deny that. He's obviously released the text messages or the alleged text messages with Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians could either confirm or deny that or disprove it, so to speak. So I think this is something that if it's not true from Antonio Brown's perspective, the Buccaneers need to, as an organization, dispute this quickly because right now these are strong allegations against an organization. So Antonio Brown references the conversation that Bruce Arians has with him on the sideline, saying that he came up to him, had a conversation, and made a gesture. So when I watch tape, it's called the All-22. 11 players on offense, 11 players on defense. Now, to get that All-22, it's like a condensed version of the game. Essentially, it's the 8 seconds from basically the snap or the break of the huddle to the end of the play. The only way we get that tape is there is a camera that sits at the top of a stadium. I actually think the camera was developed at this network called the Hawkeye that shoots the whole football field, and it could zoom in or zoom out. It tapes the whole game from pregame throughout the whole game, halftime to the end of the game. If that interaction or altercation happened, it is going to be on video. It is going to be something that the video can get zoomed into, and we will be able to see exactly when that allegedly happened or didn't, and if that gesture from Bruce Arians was made or not. So I think that's step number one, trying to figure out if this was a situation that actually happened. I find it hard because we're trying to figure out all this, and again, the he said. I find it hard, candidly, that Bruce Arians, as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, has watched his Super Bowl contending football team lose their starting tailback, their starting wide receiver, one of their starting defensive ends, another starting defensive end, and their starting linebacker to injury. And now he is going to force this replacement starting wide receiver onto the field while being hurt and jeopardizing his ability to play in the playoffs. I find it difficult that Bruce Arians would do that with the big picture, knowing we should win or can win a Super Bowl. If he truly knew or felt or had been expressed to by Antonio Brown that there's a real injury there, I don't think that Bruce Arians would force him out onto the field, or the organization would do that. Legitimate injury. What do you know this? It's like that movie, The Program, right? There's a difference between being hurt and being injured. Tom Brady played last year with a torn MCL. Was that a legitimate injury? Absolutely. So might there be a legitimate injury with Antonio Brown? Probably. But is it something, if you dress on game day, Wood, you know this. If you're up and healthy on game day, your coaches expect you to go. You know, and that's why all this disputing information right now is very difficult for me to process that the Bucs were part of this, I guess, extensive cover-up.
Yeah, Danny, I think you bring up a good point, man. It's just like the last point you brought up about the fact that you dress.
Yeah.
You don't dress unless you think you can play. And once you're out there, everyone's assumed that you're good to go. Now, you could get re-injured in a game, and that could take you out. But once you put on those pads and you step between the white lines, coaches, players, everyone assume that whatever you're dealing with, you can put that behind you and go out there and play.
Right.
Now, again, we got to talk about what, you talked about the all-22 tape and seeing what exactly happened on the sideline. We definitely need more information as far as that is concerned. But I think that, I think the point that you brought up about the fact that, listen, as former players, man, there's a difference between being hurt and injured. And AB, I'm not disputing his injury. It sounds like from the MRI that he had at the hospital special surgery here in New York, it's a pretty big deal. Guess what? There's a lot of people that's played with, pretty significant injuries.
Right.
And so I just think that this whole thing, the correspondences, all these type of things, because, again, once you get lawyers involved, all those things are going to matter. Those things need to be sorted out for us to get a clear picture about this whole scenario.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure those will all be looked into. But, Dan, I want to ask you, I know that on Sunday the Bucs were able to come back and beat the Jets, but you think heading into the postseason, this is going to be a distraction for Tampa Bay?
Oh, absolutely. One, it's a removal from a big-time player on their football field. And now, again, like, Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback ever when it comes to, like, evading the elephant in the room, and overcoming that. But this is a really big deal. Obviously, a player and a person in Antonio Brown that has a history, and that's going to continue to be a part of this conversation. And now the general manager, the head coach, and the quarterback are going to be asked a lot of questions about this. And they're probably going to be forced to answer a lot of questions, and rightfully so, answer a lot of questions about this and take time away from preparation. And the reality is this football team has to change a lot over the next 2 or 3 weeks. And this is going to take time away from their ability to do that. And not only having to spend time doing that, but also I guess there's a chance that Antonio Brown is telling the truth, and I don't think his history supports that. I think his history supports us questioning the things that he says. But yeah, this is going to be something that very difficult to kind of, as an organization, for them to look past and overcome. I'd also say this, another part for me, Woody, and Charlie, that is really, I guess, forces me to question the situation. 11 days ago, this dude had 10 catches for 102 yards. He had 15 targets.
Yeah.
In that game, in that press conference, he was asked about potential injury or whatnot, and he said it's all drama made up by the media.
That's a good one.
11 days ago, he had 10 for a $102. Now we've got an ankle injury as you run off the field that is going to hinder your ability to, that's why there's just inconsistency right now for me.
Yeah, listen, I think everything that's swirling around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is a veteran team. I think I don't think that's going to affect the team as much as the injuries are starting to pile up, particularly on the offensive side of the football. Now, you talk about remaking, what you do, offensively. I think that's where the bigger problem lies for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are they going to be? No Chris Godwin, no AB. Right. Those are two big weapons that are out of the equation now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How are they going to move forward? Is it going to be Leonard Fournette when he comes back being featured more in a running game? What exactly are they going to do?
Yeah, Antonio Brown was expected to be a big piece of the puzzle with the team so depleted. But as for how he's acting this morning, AB, once he starts, he doesn't really stop. He already sent out another tweet earlier this morning. It's since been deleted. It was one of his trainers, and he was essentially insinuating that he was colluding with the team. And now he just sent out another tweet saying about, from Tom Brady to the practice squad, he appreciates all of them. Just the team mishandled the situation. So keep an eye on AB's Twitter. I'm sure it'll be definitely a spectacle, to say the least. Okay, guys, let's move on, because from one outspoken player to another, that bad man Aaron Rodgers did not hold back when responding to MVP voter Hub Arkush after Arkush said he would not be voting for the Packers quarterback because he's, quote, the biggest jerk in the league. So here is Rodgers' retort to that.
I think he's a bum. I think he's an absolute bum. He doesn't know me. I don't know who he is. No one knew who he was probably until yesterday's comments. But I mean, and I listened to the comments, but to say he had his mind made up in the summertime, in the off season, that I had zero chance of winning MVP, in my opinion, should exclude future votes. His problem isn't with me being a bad guy or the biggest jerk in the league. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. I mean, I've never met him. I've never had lunch with him. I've never had an interview with him. His problem is I'm not vaccinated. So if he wants to go on a crusade and collude and come up with an extra letter to put on the award just for this season and make it the most valuable vaccinated player, then he should do that. But he's a bum, and I'm not going to waste any time worrying about that stuff.
All right, so yesterday after Rodgers spoke, Hub Arkush posted a column on Shaw Media apologizing for his comments. In part, it said, quote, I made a terrible mistake. It was completely my fault. There was no one else to blame, and I am here to try and apologize. To Aaron Rodgers, you are one of the greatest players of this generation and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Whether or not you are this year's MVP is up to the 50-member panel, neither me nor my critics. I couldn't possibly be more sorry for dragging all of this into my mess, and I hope you will accept my apology. All right. Again, a lot to unpack here. So while Arkush is apologizing for his earlier comments, Dan, do you believe the criticism of Rodgers is still fair?
No. First of all, his apology falls on deaf ears because he's just mad or apologizing that his feelings were made public. Number two, he should not be allowed to vote for the MVP ever again. Ever again. That should be revoked from him. You should be thankful that you get to vote for the MVP. That is rare air that you get to have an opinion and or judge upon. No one asked you. Not a single person asked you to share what your thoughts are about Aaron Rodgers as a person or a human being. The MVP is an award that is voted upon about the person's performance on the field that they earn. In the NFL, we actually have a thing that you can vote on when it comes to a person's character, integrity, or what you believe about them. That's called the Walter Payton Man of the Year. If he doesn't want to vote for Aaron Rodgers in regards to that, that's fine. And that's probably justified given what the criteria is. The MVP is about what you do on the football field. Right now, this writer sounds jealous that Aaron Rodgers can do things that he can never do nor never fathom about doing, and he's judging Aaron Rodgers by Aaron Rodgers' actions and himself by his own intentions. The criticism of Aaron Rodgers hasn't been fair, and this writer should never be allowed to vote for the MVP again.
Dan, let me take it a step further. This is BS in my opinion, because what you're affecting is legacy.
Correct.
And Dan, you and I both know this. Legacy means a lot to former players, because listen, at the end of the day, when we're done playing and all those type of things, that's what we're remembered for. We're remembered for our legacy, what we've done on the field. And for this guy to come out and inject his personal personal biases or his personal feelings towards Aaron Rodgers as it relates to the MVP voting, it's wrong. It's wrong. And you're right. He should have his credentials revoked as far as that 100%. Is concerned. But I think this also goes to a bigger place here, because I think over the years whether you're talking about MVP voting or Hall of Fame voting, Dan, we've heard many cases where writers have injected their personal feelings as far as players getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yes, the list goes on. And so, again, I just say this means a lot to players. Players, have been playing since Little League all the way up until their pro career, just preparing and getting to this moment. And then to go out there and play at that high level, to be considered the MVP or be considered for the Hall of Fame, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And for individuals in this process who are in the media, not play the game, but in the media, that are somehow determining whether a guy has, had these credentials as far as their legacy is concerned, I think it's appalling, man. And I just think that more light needs to be brought onto this process.
Yeah, and it should become kind of transparent. Of when you vote, why are you voting or why are you not? There should be a justifiable reason. It's almost like the hiring process, right? Woody, make it very transparent of why are you making those choices? I would like to know, I'm not trying to be a jerk by any means. How does this writer have an MVP vote? Like, what has he done or accomplished to have that MVP vote? And now this brings in to question everybody that's going to vote for the MVP. Yeah. If this writer was so forthright in saying, I'm not going to vote for him because I don't agree with the things that he does off the field, how many others are like that potentially? And if Aaron doesn't win the MVP, whether you think he's worthy of it or not on the field, it's going to bring into question everybody that votes in this process and maybe some of their biases. Are there going to be people who don't vote for him for the same reasons? Are there going to be people who vote for another guy that they might not necessarily feel is worthy of it on the field, but because they align with the same type of views or values? Again, I'll reiterate, he should never vote for the MVP again, and this should force a transparency, because this is a big deal, Wood. We're voting for the MVP of the NFL. There's one of these every single year. Mm-hmm. And this is, to your point, this impacts guys' reputation and legacy and their ability to kind of get into the Hall of Fame. I don't think it'll affect Aaron's, but he should never vote for the MVP again. And he should be embarrassed by it.
Yeah, well, Dan, you asked about how people get the ability to have an MVP vote. I don't know the answer to that, but just as far as Arkush is concerned, he's the editor of Pro Football Weekly, also contributes to other Chicago area media. So again, that's what he does, and he has been given that vote for the reason I do not know why.
Given that vote is a good phrasing, Charlie. He was given that vote. I don't think he's done anything to earn that vote.
Fair enough. Okay, guys, let's keep it moving because we still have a lot more NFL to get to still ahead. Good news here, King Henry.
The stylish Lexus RX. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
The Titans are in a great spot. They are one win away from clinching the AFC. All they need to do, beat the Texans, no big deal. And they're getting their star running back, Derrick Henry, in just the time for the postseason. Henry practiced for the first time yesterday after being on IR since November 1st with a fractured foot. So is Ryan Tannehill excited? Oh, yeah.
Get him back out there. Obviously he's put in a lot of work to get to this point. And it's been a while. So, no doubt it's exciting to get him back out there, and we'll see what he can do. Derek's a heck of a player, so anytime we can get him back out here working his way to going out and competing with us is going to be huge for us.
Henry returning, the Titans have the third shortest odds to win the conference according to Caesars Sportsbook. The Chiefs are the current favorites, despite ESPN's FBI giving the Bills the highest chance to win. Dan, the competition is definitely stiff in the AFC, so which team do you see standing in the Chiefs' way the most?
Yeah, I've been on the Colts. I think the Colts are the team that is best built to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, to your point, Charlie, I could see almost any team coming out of the AFC. I think the Chiefs are the team to beat. The reason I say the Colts are, one, on both sides of the football, they control the line of scrimmage. I think it's the best offensive line outside of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL. Their run game is diverse. It's also got the ability to go the distance. It's one that 5-6 yard runs, but go the distance. Their defensive line is absolutely fantastic. They're one that can stop the run and get after the quarterback, and they're a coverage-based unit. That zone coverage that's built on two-high scheme and coverage guys in rotation that we know has given the Chiefs some issues throughout the season. There is a question at the quarterback for some people, and that is fair. They don't have the most explosive passing game in the NFL, but because of the way they dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, I think if that team plays their best game or their A game, they're most equipped to beat the Kansas City Chiefs and knock them off.
I love it.
I want to talk about a team that swept the Indianapolis Colts this year, okay, and that's the Tennessee Titans. And I don't know of many teams that has had as many injuries as the Tennessee Titans, particularly with some of the big name players that they've had. We all know about King Henry. There's not a team that has that one player identity is tied more to than Tennessee Titans and King Henry. That he means that much to that program. Obviously, Julio Jones has been dealing with a plethora of injuries, and he's missed significant time. A.J. Brown has missed significant time. I mean, I could go on and on about a lot of the big name players that have missed time with the Tennessee Titans. But I think that the thing that I want to talk about is through all of that, the job that Mike Vrabel has done, staying true to who he is as a coach, staying true to what their identity is. Dan, did you know that, even with King Henry being out, they rushed for more yards than when King Henry was in there? That is just phenomenal considering all the injuries and, with all the skill position players that they have. This is the team, they've beaten the Chiefs, okay? Like I said, they swept the Colts. They beat they out in Los Angeles with the Rams when King Henry went out early in that game. Yeah. They still found a way to dominate the Rams in Los Angeles. So they're getting back a lot of their pieces at the right time. So when I talk about a team that I think when the arrow is trending in the right direction, and they were able to, they possibly able to secure home field advantage in the playoffs, that's the Tennessee Titans for me.
So, listen, I don't all that disagree with you on the Titans. I would tell you that I think the Titans have the executive of the year in John Robinson and the assistant coach of the year in Todd Downing, who took over for their offensive coordinator role. I think the Titans are fantastic. The Titans were the team that we talked about a lot in like September and mid-October, and then we haven't talked a lot about them because the thing that made them different than everybody else in the NFL were those three skill position guys, A.J. Brown, Julio, and Derrick Henry, because of their physicality, like the size. No one else has the skill guys with that size. The reason that I would say that I'm still a little hesitant on Tennessee is because I don't know if those guys are reliable when it comes to their health. Like, I think what Derrick Henry has done is absolutely remarkable, getting back to being able to run right now. But what kind of version or how much of a percentage of Derrick Henry are we going to get? I think we're all excited and hopeful that it's like that 90%, 100% Derrick Henry. But I don't know. We don't know. And I think Derrick Henry is the difference, or I think those three skill position guys are the difference between this team being a real Super Bowl contender and one that's just kind of a good story this season. So I don't know what I'm going to get out of him with his health, and I'm hopeful that it's awesome. The same could be said about those two receivers. Julio has been in and out of the lineup for 3 months. If Julio doesn't play and the hamstring acts up, that is a huge impact to their football team. The same with A.J. Brown, where I don't think like if the Colts are as healthy as they can be and the Titans are as healthy as they can be, yes, I would say the Titans. But I just don't have, you see how I'm trying to pronounce that with Titans? I don't have like the confidence that those three stars are going to remain fully healthy for this run. That's my difference.
Okay, well, obviously health is one of those. Go ahead, Damian.
Yeah, listen, I think another thing that I'm going to point out as far as the Indianapolis Colts are concerned is last week's game against the Raiders. I think that was a blow to the Indianapolis Colts. The fact that Jonathan Taylor rushed for over 100 yards, and we know that him running over 100 yards prior to that game, they were undefeated. They ended up losing to the Las Vegas Raiders, at home. I think it dents them a little bit. The fact that the quarterback, and we've talked about the skill position players for the Tennessee Titans. We talked about the skill position players for the Tennessee Titans. But Carson Wentz, Dan, come on now. Can we really sit here, and I know you love Carson Wentz, but can you really sit here and feel confident, that if the Indianapolis Colts is going against the Tennessee Titans, are you confident in Carson Wentz that he's able to make the requisite plays to go out there and win playoff games?
Yeah, I'm the same confidence I was when everyone said he stunk last year in Philadelphia, and I said he's going to go to Indy and he's going to play really good football, and he's done just that. You can't. Two things, Wood. Two things. I actually think that what happened against Jacksonville will be the best thing that happened to Indy. The quarterback didn't practice all week. A bunch of them were, you saw Darius Leonard talk about it on Hard Knocks. Practice was bad. Like, they just played if you think differently about the Indianapolis Colts today than you did Saturday before their game of last weekend, that's on you. I think of them the same exact way. They were all sick, they didn't practice, they didn't prepare well, and they played poorly.
Oh, Dan, don't give me those excuses. Come on. Like, everybody's dealing with COVID and sicknesses and all that. Come on, man. Like
everybody's been impacted by it.
As a cop-out right now?
All right.
Damien,
I'll tell you what I told the live crew. Save this clip.
Damien, it's 2 against 1 here. You know I'm not going against the Colts, so Dan, you're my guy. Thank you so much for being strong in your conviction. But, let's also look back at the Titans. Dan, you mentioned their health. That is a wait-and-see type of thing. But one thing that is certainly not a concern for them is their head coach, Mike Vrabel. Yeah. He has done such a good job coaching the Titans this season, despite everything that's happened. So, Damien, you think Vrabel should win Coach of the Year?
Absolutely. I think that Mike Vrabel has done a tremendous job. Again, I just touch upon the injuries. Again, I talk about King Henry and how he, ties into the identity of the Tennessee Titans. You lose him for a good chunk of the season. You play without Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, pieces on the defensive side of the football, guys missing on the offensive line. And through all of that, he has the Tennessee Titans right now on the cusp of being the number 1 seed and home field advantage. Who's done a better job?
Matt LaFleur.
Tell me, Dan, who's done a better job?
Matt LaFleur. I just did. Matt LaFleur should be and is and has been the coach of the year. So I'm ready for this one, Wood. First of all, this is his third straight year of winning 13 games. At some point, can we not acknowledge the guy is a fantastic coach? If he can't win Coach of the Year in one of those, if he can't win Coach of the Year in one of those 3 seasons, then we got a flawed system. Now, Mike Vrabel's been outstanding. I agree, the injuries. But if you look at, first of all, expectations for teams, we thought Tennessee was going to be good this year. We thought Tennessee or Indy was going to win that division. That has happened. We also
to be this good, to be number 1 seed good.
Did you think Green Bay, given what transpired from basically the NFL draft time last year and the conversation all offseason and the question of Aaron Rodgers if he was going to go there or not, and then is he going to show up at training camp? Did you think that the Green Bay Packers would be a 13-win team and the number 1 NFC team? Because I did not. I did not think that they'd be able to handle that.
Well, listen, when Aaron Rodgers committed to coming back to Green Bay, that automatically puts them right at the top of the heap in the NFC.
You thought they'd be the 1 seed?
Aaron Rodgers.
So you thought they would be the 1 seed?
With Aaron Rodgers, absolutely.
So, all right, so then you're in the minority because I don't know a lot of people that did. I certainly did not. And then think about they've dealt with injuries as well. I mean, Jair Alexander's been gone for most of the year. Zadarius Smith, gone for most of the year. They had to go out to Arizona with me and you playing at some of their positions, and they won that football game. You know that there's been a revolving door on their offensive line. They've had to play this whole season without Bakhtiari. They lost Elkton Jenkins, and yet here they are. And Week 18 doesn't matter for them because they've already locked it up. That's why Matt LaFleur is the coach of the year. I'll give you, Vrabel has done an outstanding job. I'm not disagreeing with that. Matt LaFleur has done a better job. I think Nick Sirianni for the Philadelphia Eagles needs to be in that conversation because of expectations.
Absolutely.
No one expected Phil. I would say Zach Taylor, again, for the outside expectations. But I think Matt LaFleur has been and has never wavered from being the coach of the year this year. He has done everything that should be required to deserve that. This has not been an easy offseason. Tennessee didn't have to deal with that, nor season when it came to, if we're going to talk about Tennessee's injuries, we got to talk about Green Bay's.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur, certainly someone who is deserving of being in the conversation, but just to strengthen Mike Vrabel's case, he is the only coach that lost their MVP in Week 8 of the season. He's also the only coach in NFL history to ever use 88 players in a single season. Not just this season, but
Charlie,
ever.
whose side are you on?
Listen, I'm just saying, I'm
You
just
know
here to
who
add
she riding
information.
with. She riding
I think
with
you
me.
both make very good points. I'm just saying, I thought it was a very interesting fact I wanted to share with you. Maybe it's something for you to consider. Okay, guys, we're going to give you just a little bit of break because we have some NBA to get to because Kyrie. And we have so much to get into here in hour 2 of today's First Take. Is Aaron Rodgers running away with the MVP, or is there a player or maybe two that could steal the show this weekend? Plus, which NFL quarterbacks does our Dan Orlovsky trust to lead the teams deep into the playoffs? His top 5 coming up soon. And with Turk's jersey now hanging in the Mavs rafters, we'll ask Big Perk where Nowitzki sits on his top 5 all-time international players list. Do not miss any of that. So much more coming up. But first, let's get back to Antonio Brown, who has been in the news every day since his dramatic mid-game exit on Sunday. This time, releasing a statement saying that the Bucs wanted him to play through an ankle injury that will require surgery. AB wrapped up the lengthy statement with this, quote, "I love the Bucs fans. I really do. I love my teammates and everyone who showed me grace and believed in me. I gave the Bucs everything I had on the field. What the organization is doing now needs to be cleaned up. I do not understand how people publicly claiming to be concerned about my mental health can do these things to me in private. Once my surgery is complete, I'll be back to 100% and looking forward to next season. Business gonna be booming." We've heard that one before. Okay, it's worth noting that Brown tweeted out alleged text messages between himself and Bruce Arians to corroborate his story. But all that aside, Damian, does AB still have a future in the NFL?
I do. Okay. Because as Dan knows this as well, talent trumps everything.
Yeah.
Okay? We've seen guys throughout time, throughout the National Football League that's, committed egregious offenses and all those type of things. But if the talent level meets that need, there will be teams out there desperate enough to go and acquire the talent. And we know how talented AB is. Okay, it's apparent. All you got to do is open your eyes and watch AB out there play. Even when AB is not 100%, he is still one of the best wide receivers that we have in the National Football League. And that's what this league is all about. It's all about procuring and acquiring talent. Yes, is he a headache? No question about it. Does he come with baggage? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, when you talk to team execs, coaches, all those players, all those type of things, what matters most? Winning. Yeah. Winning matters most. Winning is the ultimate cure-all, okay? And teams are in the business of acquiring talented players. And so I do think there's going to be a team, probably multiple teams, probably next year in 2022, that's going to look into and probably get AB on one of their rosters because, quite frankly, he's still playing at a high enough level where teams feel like he could be part of the process of winning football games and ultimately trying to get to a championship.
Yeah, D. Wood, my initial inclination is to agree with you. We've been around the NFL long enough that nothing surprises me and nothing shocks me. So my initial thought is, yeah, he's going to play football again. But I think my answer is a little bit unknown because we don't know exactly what's going to come from this situation. Like, this is a really real situation, so to speak. And there is, again, strong allegations from Antonio Brown against the general manager, against the head coach, and against the organization. So we're going to figure out, or hopefully figure out, who's telling the truth. Is it Antonio Brown or is the organization? And again, I said this in the first hour, I think they need to dispute this and everything that Antonio Brown is saying about them if it's not true. How much self-implosion does Antonio Brown go down, right? Like, because the use of Twitter and he's sending out all these private conversations, he's putting his bank account information on. It is going to shrink the amount of teams that are willing to deal with you, no matter how good you are, with the amount of self-implosion that you kind of expose yourself to. And then also, I think, how much public exposure is he going to put the organization through? Like, how much is he going to actually reveal about those conversations, because if he buries them, and again, if he's proven to be telling the truth and all that he shares is factual, that's going to be difficult, I think, for NFL teams and owners to kind of accept, whether we like that or not. And so I think it's how much self-implosion does he go through? How much does he try to actually bury the Buccaneers? How much does he bury a guy like Bruce Arians and Tom Brady and Jason Licht, their general manager? And I think the teams that might be interested have to look at it and say, not only could the greatest quarterback and one of the, if not the greatest leaders in the history of sports, Tom Brady, get him to focus again and lock in again for another 6 or 7 week stretch, another Super Bowl championship couldn't either. And another $1 million of incentives within his contract couldn't either. And I think that has to factor into those teams in making that decision as well.
Yeah, listen, Dan, I'm not disputing any of that, but here's what I'm going to say. What's one of the worst things probably the worst thing you could do as a player is quit on your team.
Yes.
We've seen that. We've seen AB do that in Pittsburgh, where he refused to go into the game, his last game wearing a Steelers uniform.
Right.
We essentially saw him quit against the Oakland Raiders. Okay, he moves on to New England. You know, that situation blows up. And then we see him move on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Think about it, Dan. If any other player just quits, that's usually it.
Yeah.
Your career is done.
Right.
It's over.
Right.
It's over. The fact that AB has gotten chance after chance after chance after chance only reinforces what I said earlier. The fact that regardless of the baggage that Antonio Brown brings, and he brings plenty, he is still a supremely talented wide receiver.
Right.
And everyone sees that. And ultimately, again, at the end of the day, teams are in the business of winning.
Right.
They want to win, regardless of the warts that you have on you. And that is what ultimately leads me to believe in 2022, there's going to be an executive or another one that's going to stick their neck out and say, I can contain this beast. Because, Dan, you and I both know this. There are so many people in the National Football League, particularly front office coaches, that have egos. They think they can, if I get my hands on him, I can change him. I can control him. And someone's going to fall prey to that next year. I guarantee you, because the talent is still so good.
Talent breeds toleration, right? So we know that, and that's to your point. I would say still, I disagree that it's a home run, like a no-brainer, because if it comes out that he is embellishing, fabricating, making this stuff up, and what he's saying did not happen, and there's evidence and proof from the organization, I don't think there's any chance that any team signs Antonio Brown moving forward. If this comes out that he is, again, not telling the truth and making this stuff up and lying, his NFL career is done.
Yeah, Dan, definitely I agree with you there. But, Damien, in regards to what you're saying, as a woman, I can definitely tell you the whole I can change him mentality, it doesn't work. So I hope that the teams out there also can realize that. All right, guys, we still have a whole lot more to get to here on First Take. Jonathan Taylor and the Colts, my guys, need to win for us. What you got? Oh, and Monica McNabb obviously here, too.
I do. You and Monica sit back and keep a cool booty. This is my top 5 international players ever to play the game of basketball. And if you want to argue, go argue with your mama. If you love your mama so much, go argue with your daddy. It's not up for debate. Coming up at number 5, the Frenchman himself, Mr. France, Tony Parker, TP, 6-time All-Star, 4-time NBA champion, Finals MVP. Look, top 10 in playoff points in league history. This man here was a killer. Led the league in points in the paint a few times in his career, playing with an area with Shaq and Duncan. Coming in at number 4. Number 4, we got the Canadian guard. We're going with Steve Nash, 2-time MVP. At the time with Shaq, Kobe, Tracy McGrady, LeBron James, all were in their prime. Guess who came out on top and won the MVP award? Steve Nash. Led the league in assists multiple years. Changed the game for a lot of people. At number 3, the Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I know he has a short His career's short right now, but his resume longer than the Chick-fil-A line, okay? Two-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year and MVP in the same year. Champion, Finals MVP. He's only 27 years old, so he can move up. At number 2, we going with Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk Nowitzki was the Steph Curry for the big man, okay? He changed the game. One-legged fadeaways. Made it cool for us to shoot. Made it cool for big man to shoot the 3 in today's game. So when you look at Dirk, 30,000 plus points, did it with one franchise. Hey, remarkable career. Greatest German player to ever play the game of basketball. At number 1, Akeem the Dream Olajuwon. Everybody goes to Akeem in the summertime to get those post moves. The most skilled big man to ever play the game of basketball. Yes, I said it, to ever play the game of basketball. This is why Kobe went to him in the summer. This is why LeBron went to train with him in the summer. Everybody wanted to be like Akeem. This is my top 5 internationals to ever play the game of basketball.
Monica, what do you say to that?
I just want to point out, Charlie, I don't know if you heard Perk when he said it, but he said Dirk allowed us big men to shoot the 3 like Perk was shooting 3s. I just don't want that to go overlooked in this conversation. Perk, I love the list. I will say the only personal tug of war that I had a little bit.
It's no tug of war. It's no tug of war. I told you it's not up for debate.
All right. Okay. So where's Manu Ginobili then? That's my only question for you.
Listen, it was hard. It was hard. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes people get left off. And at the end of the day, when I was picking my list, it was between whether I was going to take Tony Parker or whether I was going to take Manu Ginobili. And when I put their resume side by side, Tony Parker got the, you know what I mean? He got the nod.
All right. I guess, I mean, we're talking about NBA, so I guess that gold medal that Manu has with Argentina just doesn't matter in this conversation. But, you know, strong list. I will say this.
It does matter. It's special.
I will say this, though. This list immediately got me thinking about some of the guys that are currently doing their thing in the NBA and what it could look like a few years from now when you talk about Luka. Joel Embiid in particular are the 2 that kind of jumped off the page when I thought about this list. But well done, Perk. I won't be arguing with either of my parents.
All right, so clearly he went with guys who, you know, had longer playing spans because there's a lot of current players who very well could make an international players list. But Perk, let's look back to last night, Dirk Nowitzki getting his jersey retired. It was a very special moment. You actually played against Dirk. So what stands about going head to head with him the most to you?
Well, Charlie, it's a lot. I mean, I know I caught about 500 to 1,000 of those 30,000 points. He gave that work to me at times. But, you know, in 2012, you know, me and Dirk didn't see eye to eye, okay? Me and Dirk didn't see eye to eye. Run the video. Where the clip at? There it go. Right here, we get into a little scuffle. See, you have to understand. The year before this, Dirk gave me that work in the Western Conference Finals. So now we get our chance to get our get back, and I got to ruffle the feathers a little bit. You see it? Yeah,
I see it.
You see it? It's about to go down. It's about to go down. I had to set the tone. And you know what ended up happening? Guess what happened in this series? Pull out the brooms, because we swept them. We swept them. That's what happens when you set the tone, when you're the enforcer.
It is Dirk versus Perk. I wish we had the audio for that one. That would have been good.
I made it
that
cool.
That is excellent. I love Perk clips.
Amazing.
Monica, Charlie, I made it okay for James and Russ and KD to feel comfortable and say, you know what? Oh, okay, we got them now. We got Big Perk, got our back. We about to go ahead and sweep these people. Pull the brooms out.
You did it. You did it, Perk. Hey, Perk, Monica, thank you so very much for your time. We will see you later.
See y'all.
All right. Let's keep it moving. In the league. Ouch. Here's Roger's retort.
I think he's a bum. I think he's an absolute bum. He doesn't know me. I don't know who he is. No one knew who he was probably until yesterday's comments. But, I mean, and I listened to the comments, but to say he had his mind made up in the summertime, in the off season, that, you know, I had zero chance of winning MVP, in my opinion, should exclude, you know, future votes. you know, his problem isn't with me being a bad guy or the biggest jerk in the league. Because he doesn't know me. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. I mean, I've never met him. I've never had lunch with him. I've never had an interview with him. His problem is I'm not vaccinated. You know, so if he wants to go on a crusade and collude and come up with an extra letter to put on the award just for this season and make it the most valuable vaccinated player, then he should do that. But he's a bum, and I'm not going to waste any time worrying about that stuff.
Okay, so Rodgers not wasting his time, but still yesterday after Rodgers spoke, Hub Arkush posted a column on Shaw Media apologizing for his comments. In part, it said, quote, "I made a terrible mistake. It was completely my fault. There is no one else to blame, and I am here to try and apologize." To Aaron Rodgers, you are one of the greatest players of this generation and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Whether or not you are this year's MVP is up to the 50-member panel, neither me nor my critics. I couldn't possibly be more sorry for dragging all of you into my mess, and I hope you will accept my apology. Earlier on the show, we hit the off-the-field angle, but you know what? Let's bring it back to the gridiron. So, Dan, is Rodgers the runaway MVP?
I don't think he's the runaway. I, for the great majority of this season, have said that Jonathan Taylor was the MVP of the NFL. I think what's happened over the last 3 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has probably taken the #1 spot. Jonathan's had good games, not great games. And Aaron Rodgers obviously had a really good stretch here where they've secured the 1 seed and he's continued to produce. I still think that if Aaron Rodgers does not play Sunday this weekend, because again, their game does not matter, and Jonathan Taylor goes for 175 yards, 200 yards against Jacksonville, and they win because of him and his performance to get into the playoffs, given what their season started like, I think Jonathan Taylor has a chance to overtake Aaron Rodgers in the MVP voting. I think it's his to lose, but I think a huge game from Jonathan is a big deal. I'd also say I think Joe Burrow has the chance to be in that conversation as well with what he's done. Now, everyone, Charlie, goes to this. Like, everyone says Derrick Henry didn't win it last year and he rushed for 2,000 yards. Okay, so context in this conversation matters. Number one, last year when Derrick Henry ran for 2,000 yards, there were 3 quarterbacks that threw for over 40 touchdowns. There were 11 quarterbacks that threw for over 30 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, I think, has somewhere around 1,700 plus yards right now. Derrick Henry ran for 2,000. This year, there's only 1 quarterback that's thrown for 40 touchdowns. There's only 9 that have thrown for 30. So the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, won it last year because he had far and away the best quarterback performance of last season in a body or grouping that had a better quarterbacking performance last year than it did this year. That's why I still think Jonathan Taylor is in the conversation.
I like that one.
Hey, Dan, let me ask you a question.
You like that, Wood? You
hey,
like
Dan,
that?
let me ask you a question.
What?
Let me
I already
ask you
know
this
who you're
question.
going to say.
Who is that one quarterback who was thrown for 40 touchdowns, Dan? Tom Brady.
Tomas Brady.
Tom Brady is the quarterback who's thrown for 40 touchdowns, okay? And I'm just going to go back to this. Do I think Aaron Rodgers is going to win the MVP? Yes. Do I think it's close? I do think it's close, and I think it's close because of Tom Brady. And listen, Dan, you bring up, Jonathan Taylor. He's had a fantastic year, but we all know how this award is trending. It's trending. It's a quarterback award. It's a quarterback. That's just the facts here. Unless the running back has just an unbelievable special year, it's going to pretty much always go towards the quarterback. And for me, Tom Brady this year, this is a guy that's thrown for over 1,000 more yards than Aaron Rodgers. Now, granted, he plays in a different type of offense than Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers has A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones and has more of a ground game than Tom Brady. But again, at the age of 44, and to have all of that on his shoulders, to throw for 40 touchdowns, have 1,000 more passing yards, I just think it's just unbelievable. So, yes, Aaron Rodgers more than likely is going to win the MVP, but I think Tom Brady is right on his heels in this whole thing.
Well, I would say this. Like, I know Tom's thrown for 40 touchdowns. Aaron's thrown for 38. And I actually have it right here. Tom's attempted 682 passes. Aaron Rodgers is attempted 513. So Tom's thrown 170 more passes. I would imagine Aaron would have 2 more touchdowns if he did that, and I don't know, 1,000 more yards, but certainly a bunch more yards. So, the fact that they're so close with their touchdowns in regards to the difference in passing attempts has to be a part of this conversation. I think that while Davante Adams is the best receiver in football, I would say that the totality of the weapons in Tampa for the majority of the season have been better. Aaron lost his starting tight end for basically 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the season, and Tunyon had to play some games without Allen Lazard as well. So both seasons are remarkable. If a quarterback is going to win it, I think Aaron Rodgers wins it again. But again, I would say this, Wood. I think that if we're going to put Tom Brady in the conversation, Joe Burrow has to be right there neck and neck with him. I honestly feel that way.
Listen, I don't disagree with you because I think a lot of times when you talk about MVP conversation, a lot of it is momentum down the stretch.
Sure.
And look at what Joe Burrow has done, particularly down the stretch. Hell, I mean, his whole season has been lights out, but just down the stretch with the numbers that he's been able to put up, those fantasy type numbers he's been able to put up, it's been eye-opening. So I think Joe Burrow, listen, we've both touched upon it. We've joked about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has officially arrived to the party. I think he's one of the finest quarterbacks that we have in this league.
Yeah, and I think indifferent to what Tom and Aaron have done, he does not have their offensive lines. Cincinnati, pass protection-wise, has still struggled. Now, I wouldn't be as crazy enough to go on national television and say that I would take him over Patrick Mahomes over the next 5 years. I think he's phenomenal, but I'm not crazy enough to do something like that.
They did go head-to-head. I mean, they went head-to-head, and who came out on top? So,
that's one
I'm
game,
just gonna
though.
throw that out there, but it's not crazy for me to say, is it, Dan?
It's strong.
He's questioning your mental health here. Hey, Dan, so you said that you would take, if you had to choose a quarterback, you would choose Aaron Rodgers. So there is the plan for him to play on Sunday. It's a meaningless game, a throwaway against the Lions, but Matt LaFleur has said that all healthy starters will take the field. Do you think that this is the right way of going about things? Do you think Rodgers should be playing on Sunday?
I would play him for like a series or two. That's fine. I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if Aaron Rodgers saw the second quarter. I think they treat it maybe like the first preseason game, where you go out there, you have a drive, hopefully have some success, maybe a second one, you get 7 or 10 points on the board. And Charlie, honestly, you can call plays to make sure that you're not exposing him to a high percentage of hits or high chance of hits. So I'd be shocked if Aaron Rodgers saw the second quarter. If he sees the second half, I'll have some choice words on Monday morning.
Okay.
Yeah, listen, Charlie, I agree. I think he should be on a pitch count because, the one thing we talk about as it relates to the postseason is all about momentum. It's about that chemistry, the cohesion, and all those type of things. And sometimes what happens, we already know the Green Bay Packers have locked up the number 1 seed. Well, guess what? If Aaron Rodgers doesn't play this week, that would be 2 weeks, 3 weeks before he's playing a meaningful game. I've been a part of many playoff games where teams have rested players and then they come out flat, even with a bye week, and they lose. So that's why I would say play Aaron Rodgers on some type, maybe like what Dan was talking about, a quarter, maybe a little bit into the second quarter, but get him out of the game just so he can have that flow with his guys out there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You think about if it was a year ago, this week wouldn't even be happening. We'd already be heading to the playoffs because that 18th week was something new for this season. Okay, guys, we'll wrap it there. We have still more on the way with the playoffs, like we said, right around the corner. Our Dan or Lock. Well, 1 week doesn't seem like a lot of time, but I guess it is when you are this close to the postseason, and we are almost there. So this seems like a good time, gentlemen, to check in with quarterbacks. So let's toss it to our own quarterback, Dan Orlovsky, to give us the top 5 signal callers he trusts most in the playoffs. So, Dan, floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I'll start at number 5. Matthew Stafford for the Los Angeles Rams, I absolutely trust. Now, Matthew has had a fantastic season, and there's been the last 3 or 4 games he's had some interceptions, 100%, some pick sixes. That's not who he is as a player. It's not who he's been the first 12 years of his career, and it's not who he's been the majority of this season. I think the way that Sean McVay is building this offense, throughout some of the injuries and the change of scheme is a big deal. Van Jefferson, his connection with OBJ has grown and grown and grown. Obviously, Cooper Kupp and his connection. I just trust that in the fourth quarter and those football games, and they need a score, I would put everything I have that Matthew Stafford is going to get it done. He's been the best quarterback in football this season in the fourth quarter, 42 comeback wins in his career. Number 4, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a player that, when I watched him play in the national championship game, I said he's different. And then said no-brainer number 1 pick last year. And then this year, about 6 weeks ago, I said he's a top 5 player at the position. I think that has been proven to be accurate with what we have seen him do the last 6 or 7 weeks. Last week was a benchmark moment for Joe Burrow. Down 14 early on, doesn't flinch. Down 14 late, doesn't flinch. Need a game-winning drive against the number 1 seed in the AFC and Patrick Mahomes, he gets it done. Joe Burrow, I trust completely because of his ability to never panic with the football. I don't care if his last name does not have 3 R's. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes. Been some valleys this season with Patrick Mahomes, but I love the fact that mechanically he has gotten so much better. Number 2, decision-making wise, has gotten better and better and better. We've seen the creative Patrick Mahomes kind of reemerge in the last month, and his track record speaks for itself. He has earned the right for me to sit here and say, no matter some of those difficulties throughout this season, I still believe Patrick Mahomes is the most talented player at the position that I've ever seen and the best quarterback in football. Number 2 is going to be Tom Brady. Woody just went on a long and well-deserved dissertation of why he should be in the MVP conversation. Last week on the road against the Jets, they're struggling. Everybody's hurt. Again, he leads them to a game-winning drive. I think Mike Evans' health is huge. I think Rob Gronkowski's health is huge. They've got to go back to a little bit more of a 3 tight end offense now that they've dealt with some of the injuries and obviously Antonio Brown not being part of their football team. Number 1, going to surprise some people. I don't care. It's my list. Like Kendrick Perkins says, carry the HE double hockey sticks on. I'm going to put Carson Wentz as number 1. I think that because of the player that I've seen in the past years, his track record, what I've watched, and the rebuilding of his confidence, what's the matter?
Yeah, Damien, what's wrong? I don't get it.
Dog, you got Carson Wentz number 1. Dan, I know that's your boy. I know that's
He's
your boy.
not my boy. I've never talked to him.
You got Carson Wentz over Patrick Mahomes? Like, man, look, I'm not. Can y'all throw my list up there, please?
Hold on, no.
Oh my gosh.
Hold up,
please.
Hold up, Wood. This is.
What?
I've known you for a long time. I get you. No, Carson Wentz is not number 1. Aaron Rodgers is number 1. I just knew that I would get a rise from you.
That was amazing.
Aaron Rodgers number 1.
You know I was about to go in.
Yeah. I knew you would, though, right when I said it. I'm sure my Twitter right now is people saying some choice words. Aaron Rodgers is number 1. He's been the best quarterback all season in the NFL this year. His connection with Devontae Adams is spectacular. I think his offensive line has done such a nice job of fighting through injuries, but Aaron Rodgers is the guy that no matter the time on the clock, I trust the most to find a way to get a win. So that's my top 5.
Yeah, listen, I think that's a pretty good list. The whole Matthew Stafford thing I got a problem with. The turnovers in the latter part of the season, that bothers me. That bothers me. But let's throw up my list here. Let's see how my list compares to your list. Okay? Obviously, for me, number 5, Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow has been balling all year long. And then down the stretch, man, he's made me even more of a believer. And this is the guy that's been sacked the most times in the National Football League at 47. Yeah. Number 4, I'm going with Josh Allen. Listen, Josh Allen to me is that quarterback that you are just scared to death to play up because he can beat you not only with that special arm talent, but his legs. I mean, this is a guy that's like leading the Buffalo Bills in rushing.
Yeah.
So he can do it by himself. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes. I think, some of the struggles that Patrick Mahomes has had this year has actually made him a better quarterback. It's actually had, forced him to focus on the little things in this game, which has made him a better quarterback. And I think he's going to do fantastic in this postseason. Number 2 for me is Aaron Rodgers. Listen, Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest talents I've ever seen at the quarterback position. Got the number 1 seed locked up in the NFC. That's going to be a tough place to play up in Lambeau. But for me, who my number 1 is. Okay, I'm going with the guy who has 7 rings on his hand, Tom Brady. I mean, who's going to bet against him? This is the same guy that I know it was last year, went into Lambeau last year and got the job done. So if I'm going to push all my chips in the basket, I'm pushing my chips in the basket for 12.
I got 2 questions for you, bro. My first question is this. I agree. I love Josh Allen. I was the one threw him in the MVP list, second game of the year last year. My question about Josh Allen is this. If you're going to sit here and say that you've got reservations about Matthew because of some of the interceptions that have transpired, that's fine. That's cool. I used the Marcus Spear word, transpired. If you're going to say that, is there not a little bit of a hesitation with some of the YOLO, kind of style of play that Josh has in his game? It's what makes him great, but that's part of his game as well, right? Does that give you any hesitation?
Yeah, I think that comes with him. That's a concern. But I also look at his running ability, Dan. That's a huge part of the package that he brings to the game. It's like, this dude is just a really good athlete. He makes plays inside the pocket, outside the pocket, design runs. It's just, he has an element to his game that Matthew Stafford doesn't have, in my opinion.
And then you still have Tom at 1, even though we have no idea what this offense is really going to look like. We make these projections in the tight end, but we don't have any really clue of what they're going to look like in 2 weeks. You still have them at 1 without all those pieces?
It's because I believe in 12. 12 is a winner. He's done it. He's done it his whole career. So I trust that they'll figure it out.
Who's number 6 for you?
Okay,
Stafford.
so a little bit of disagreement here.
Stafford is 6.
Damian, first off, I have to say the expression on your face when Dan said Carson Wentz was beautiful. And I hope that you asked the producers to clip off this show because it was definitely legendary. It was good. Yeah, you were beside yourself. You didn't know what to think. Okay, so there is a little bit of disagreement here, but 2 things, or 1 thing you both can agree on. You both have Mahomes and also Rodgers in your top 3. So look, both of them the favorites, their teams in their respective conferences. So Dan, who do you think is going to have the tougher path in the playoffs?
I think it's the Kansas City Chiefs. If we're saying tougher path, Green Bay Packers or Kansas City Chiefs, I think it's the Kansas City Chiefs. One, they're going to have to go on the road more than likely to make it happen. I do not anticipate Tennessee kind of losing to Houston. And then I think the reality for Green Bay is that Tampa Bay has dealt with a lot this past month, and I just don't know how healthy of a football team they're going to be. Kansas City's going to have to more than likely run through the likes of Buffalo, who, if Buffalo plays like they did 2 weeks ago in New England, they're as good as anybody in football. They're going to have to play against potentially Cincinnati. We saw what happened last weekend. That offensive unit is as difficult to stop as anybody in football. New England is their style is incredibly difficult. Indianapolis, if they win this weekend, I'm telling you, is built to beat teams that are built like the Kansas City Chiefs. Tennessee, and their rush unit, we watched this team hammer Kansas City earlier on in the year. So I think the AFC as a whole is better.
Cincinnati.
And I just think because of what we've seen, the inconsistency in Dallas, if Dallas plays their A+ game, they could beat anybody. They didn't play an A+ game in like 3 months. And because of the injuries in Tampa Bay, I think the road for Green Bay is just a little bit easier. And specifically, they got to do it at home. They get to do it at home.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I think it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Number one, they're not going to have home field advantage like they've been accustomed to the past couple of years. That's a huge advantage when you talk about the postseason. You know, teams gonna have to go up to Lambeau and try to win again with the presumed league MVP and Aaron Rodgers. And I think that, when you look at the NFC, there's flawed teams on that side. Obviously, you talked about Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers dealing with some injuries, particularly on the offensive side of the football. Dallas Cowboys inconsistent offensively. Dak and company, they're not getting it together. And then you look at some of the teams that are in on the NFC side. The Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, listen, I think the Philadelphia Eagles, they've had a fine season, but do you think they'd be able to go up to Lambeau and win? Yes. I just think that when you look at the AFC side, man, you got some potential monsters that you got to go through. Whether you're talking about Cincinnati and Joe Burrow, Buffalo and Josh Allen, the Tennessee Titans and their rushing attack and the physicality that they come with. And Dan pointed out that the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs and the Indianapolis Colts. Those are formidable teams in the AFC. So I got to say the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion.
Okay, well, you both agree on that one. And the Chiefs can actually clinch the AFC title if they win this weekend. They also have to have Tennessee lose. So it's not looking good, but there is still a chance. Okay, guys, sit tight because NFL, the easiest way to the playoffs is win and in when the Chargers and Raiders face off on Sunday night. It is perhaps the game with the biggest implications in Week 18, and the Raiders coming in red hot with a 3-game winning streak. So, Damian, which team do you believe has the edge in this matchup?
Listen, my head says the Chargers, but my heart wants the Raiders to win this game. I just listen. As far as the matchup is concerned, I think Justin Herbert and company. I think they have the weaponry that they have on offense. I think they'll be able to exploit the back end of that Raiders secondary. But listen. For me, this is a kind of emotional thing because the Raiders, everything that they've been through this season, with the firing of John Gruden, with Henry Ruggs III, the situation with Henry Ruggs III, and for them to obviously go into Indianapolis last week and get a huge win, and to put themselves in a position to win and you're in. I mean, that just speaks volumes to everybody in that organization, Derek Carr, the leadership that you have to sustain and get to this point as a team, coaching, everybody in that organization deserves a standing ovation because a lot of teams would have folded with all that's going on and all that stuff happening this season. But for the Raiders to be sitting in this position, I want them just for personal reasons. I want to see them in the postseason.
Yeah, who would have known that you're a sweetheart? I'm going to say that the Chargers have the edge in this football game. I think the Chargers win the football game, but I do want to piggyback a little bit on what you said about the Raiders. I thought Marcus Spears said it the best this week. If Derek Carr is not their quarterback, they are not in this situation. So it is an incredible accomplishment what they've done. I'd also take it a step further. If the Raiders decide that it's in their best interest or their best future's interest to move on from Derek Carr this offseason because they don't owe him any money, you're crazy. Okay, you're flat out crazy because he is a phenomenal player and obviously a phenomenal leader. So getting ahead of that. The reason I think the Chargers have the advantage or the edge in this game is they're finally getting healthy. Mina Kimes pointed out on NFL Live this week, the Chargers have really been playing specifically on the defensive end without a bunch of their starters for a long period of time. And they're finally back to being healthy on a consistent basis. I think their coverage unit last week was really good. Justin Herbert, I think two things stand out, with Herbert right now. How fast he's making decisions. Joe Lombardi, their offensive coordinator, comes from the Saints. Drew Brees made the best quick decisions, probably as good as anybody during his time. Justin Herbert is doing that type of football. And then the ability to spread the football around to their pieces. Eckler has become such a dynamic back, dual threat style. So I think because of that, that gives them an advantage. I'm so excited to watch Slater versus a guy like Yannick Ngakoue or Max Crosby. But I think their defensive line has to match how physical the Raiders were against Indy last week. I think that both quarterbacks are going to have the chance to win the game late. I think the Chargers have the edge.
Yeah, FBI also giving the Chargers the edge, 58.2% to win. But that's not an overwhelming favorite. So anything could really happen here. It'll be fun to watch. Let's now talk about two quarterbacks who are certainly not going to be seeing any postseason action. They really have had rocky starts to their pro careers, both ranking really near the bottom of the league in multiple offensive categories. So while their teams have some of the worst records in the NFL, here's Trevor Lawrence on his optimism for the future.
I know there's some really good days ahead, and I'm excited just to experience that with obviously whoever's a part of those teams in the future, and just this city and these fans. I know this place deserves it, so I'm excited for that, and I know it's going to come.
Okay, Damian, I know where your allegiance lies, so I'm kind of figuring where you're going to go with this one, but who has the brighter future? Is it Trevor Lawrence or is it Zach Wilson?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Zach Wilson. And I think, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And when you look at Zach Wilson down the stretch, over the last 6 games, he's only turned the ball over one time, one interception. That's the primary job of a quarterback is to take care of the football. He's done a very good job of taking care of the football. You look at the Jets, he's going to be in the, next season, he's going to be in the same system, same coach. The Jets have a ton of draft picks, ton of salary cap space to add on to what they have right now. I just think he's set up really well moving forward.
Yeah, the brighter future is Trevor Lawrence. This guy is still the quarterback coming out of the draft that many people were saying he's the best since Andrew Luck. He's Peyton Manning, John Elway. This year has been a disaster. I think there's many variables off the season off the field, that have been factored into this being a disaster. But he is still an incredible talent. I will say this, Woody, and agree with you. Zach Wilson in the last 3 weeks has been very good. And I love the fact that he's been aggressive with the football, yet hasn't given it away. Trevor Lawrence, I would say, has been ignorant with the football in the last month. I've seen some very disappointing turnovers and giveaways, and there's the difference. Zach's been aggressive. Trevor Lawrence has been ignorant, but I can't fault him for everything or for what's transpired this year. Again, a Marcus Spears word. I think who they hire is going to be obviously a massive kind of factor in who becomes, if Trevor Lawrence becomes the guy that he should, but I'm not factoring anything in this season. It was a disaster in Jacksonville.
Yeah, well, both quarterbacks playing for franchises who historically have been very, very bad. That is not an understatement by any means. Okay, guys, you know what? I've been keeping my eye on AB's Twitter. Nothing new to report, so that actually could be good news. But, guys, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging with us. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see